Are you a new project professional looking to make sure that you don't make the common mistakes that every single new project manager makes? If so, you're in the right place. Welcome to Better Projects Today, the bite-sized project management podcast helping you to bridge theory and practice in your own work to create better teams, better results, and better projects. I'm Tyler Norman, and I bring 15 years of experience as a global program leader and mentor. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the 5 biggest mistakes new project managers make. When you start a new project management career, it can be exciting. It's always a little bit challenging. As a new project manager, you're often tasked with steering projects, balancing timelines, resources, stakeholder expectations, and we often get very, very eager to achieve those goals. With that, it's easy to fall into some common pitfalls that derail even the most exciting, even the most promising initiatives. Understanding and avoiding these mistakes is crucial for your growth and the success of your projects. Starting with the first mistake, focusing solely on timelines and tasks instead of the people. New project managers will frequently jump into the work early in their career and focus on tactical steps, schedules, deadlines, and not thinking about the human beings associated with each of those elements. While timelines and deliverables are obviously essential in the project space, team dynamics and individual motivations are one of the biggest things that lead to disengagement and reduced productivity. The key here is that projects are executed by people, and if you ignore the well-being and morale of your team, it's likely to result in, first things first, a lack of engagement. Nobody's going to listen to you. It can also lead to, over the long term, burnout, turnover, and just subpar performance. A team that feels valued and understood is a lot more likely to go that extra mile for you to achieve project goals. So how do you avoid this? First things first, build relationships. Your first week on a job should be focused on understanding your team members' strengths, weaknesses, career aspirations. Focus on the people. Next, foster a positive environment, encourage open communication, recognize achievements, and provide constructive or negative feedback in a way that's transparent and helpful. One key here when it comes to fostering a positive environment is address issues early. Oftentimes, at least I've found in my experience, if you address an issue shortly after it occurs, it's a painful conversation. You get through it, you're better for having had the discussion. If you let it go for weeks or months, it often just makes it harder to have that discussion when the time comes. Lastly, support work-life balance. Be mindful of the workloads associated with your team members and promote practices that prevent burnout. A great way here, and something that I struggle with today, even to this point, is emulate the work-life balance that you'd like to see in your teams. Next mistake that's very common is not defining clear goals at the start. A lot of newer project management staff will jump right into project execution without clearly defined objectives, and that often leads to confusion, scope creep, misaligned efforts. Without the specific goal defined and easy to explain, it's challenging to measure progress or determine project success. Some ways to avoid this, I will say you should be able to describe what your project is looking to accomplish in less than 3 or 4 sentences, and you should repeat that early, often on just about every meeting. One of the most important things you can do is define that vision or goal at the top. And really, a great way to test this is you should be able to quiz any member of your project team and ask, what are we accomplishing? They should have heard it so many times early, often, that they can recite it. They know exactly what the project's looking to accomplish and why. Another big way to avoid this is ensure stakeholder alignment. If there's a lack of alignment between key stakeholders, I talked earlier about having that tough conversation. Address that tough conversation early on. If you don't do so, you can get groups that aren't aligned in what's looking to be accomplished. It's just an issue. And then lastly, document and communicate. Clearly document your goals. Communicate them to the entire team, again, early, often, repeatedly. On that note, the third biggest mistake that I see with new project managers is inadequate communication and a failure to communicate early, often, and very importantly, with specific intent. Often, new project managers will set up great communication systems that automate comms, and then they fire it out rapidly to broad groups in inconsistent ways, ways that don't align with the stakeholders' need. The key phrasing here is communicate with specific intent. Why does this matter? Effective communication is the backbone of successful project management, and effective means that you're providing stakeholders with what they need. So, how do we avoid this mistake? Develop a communications plan. A communications and reporting matrix is a great way to do this, where you put your stakeholder groups across the top, your specific communication types that you plan to use, meetings, reports, dashboards, visualizations, and what groups you plan to distribute those specific communication types to. With that, you can ensure that you're communicating to the tactical team member that's in the weeds in the correct way, and you're communicating to that chief officer in the level that they need as well. Use the right channels is another key tip. You shouldn't be sending things to your CEO with MS Teams chat, and you shouldn't be sending, heavily official, overblown reports to your team members every single day. Lastly, be clear and concise. Tailor your messages to be clear, direct. Use simple layman's terms in your comms. Again, something I struggle with to this day. Try not to speak consultant language is what I've heard it called in the past. Be clear, be concise. The fourth big mistake I'll often see with new project managers is micromanaging. New PMs are excited about driving success, and through that, sometimes it will manifest as a need to control every aspect of the project. This looks like constant check-ins with team members, and it can stifle creativity, it can reduce team autonomy, and it can really damage trust. This is really important. This demotivates your team members. It slows down progress. It can also create bottlenecks. As a PM, the last thing you want is to become the bottleneck in work. So how do you avoid this? First things first, delegate effectively. As a project professional, I have a funny goal of I want my name to appear on a project plan as little as possible. I want to be assigning tasks if and when and at any point if it can be assigned out, I want to be delegating because I trust my teams and I want to empower them to move forward. On that note, empowerment often looks like giving team members the autonomy to make decisions at appropriate levels, giving them the resources they need, giving them the support they need, and staying out of the way. Lastly, focus on outcomes. Shift your focus away from how the task is being done. Maybe you have an alignment meeting on the front end where you ask a task owner to describe to you how it's going to be done for your awareness. Stay out of the weeds. Let them own the task performance and foster that culture of ownership and also accountability. One last tip here that helps with micromanaging: build systems that allow you to be aware of the work without being a fly in the ear of the people doing the tasks. This can look like a project plan with regular updates. This can look like setting up meetings in the stand-up format where you hear about what you need to hear about and then you get out of the way. Build systems so that you don't have to be that tap on the shoulder or the looking over the shoulder consistently for team members. Lastly, a big mistake that I often see with new project management professionals is trying to brush over risks, issues, or mistakes. New PMs want to be successful. That's great, but again, that'll often manifest as looking to ignore or gloss over problems because they think that's a reflection of their work. Projects are hard. Projects have risks. They have issues. More often than not, mistakes get made in projects. There's always going to be something that doesn't go perfectly in any project, and avoiding that difficult conversation or downplaying the risk will often lead to exacerbating the issue or, in worst case, project failure. This is important. Address risks, issues, mistakes head on. Put a spotlight on them, have a conversation with the right people, address the challenges in the right ways, but don't ignore them. A few ways to avoid this are to use a risk management plan. Have a plan that is agreed to across your team on how you're going to identify, assess, mitigate risks from the outset so that when that risk or issue happens, you don't have to litigate how it's going to be managed at that point. Foster an open culture, encourage the transparency. One tip I'll give from my experience is I'll often highlight early on if I do something, even if it's not a true mistake, but it's something I could have done a little bit better at the start. I'll call that out early on as a little bit of self-deprecation to show everyone in the project team or in that specific meeting I'm okay with calling out my own thing that could have been done better. That's the expectation I'd like to have for the team moving forward. Next, regular reviews. Conduct frequent project reviews to monitor progress, identify issues early, implement corrective actions. The only thing worse than a problem that comes up on a project is a problem that's ignored for a long time and then has gotten worse. This brings us to the end of the episode. I hope you found value in this material and can apply it in your own work. If you'd like to learn more about how to break into the project management industry, click this video here.